Hi there, I'm John from CNCKing.com, and today we make a custom Corian plaque. Through the years, my company has made a lot of custom Corian plaques, and as our equipment has improved over the years, our ability of what we can actually make on Corian has actually improved as well. In this case here, we used our CNC router to cut out the shape, which you'll see shortly, and at the same time, the CNC router also made the bevel. Now, some customers want a bevel, some of them don't. Some of them want different sort of profiles on their bevel, so like a rounded one. In this case here, it's a 45-degree chamfer going all the way around. And it's not really necessary, it just adds a little bit of sort of aesthetic appeal to it. In this case here, we're trying to match plaques that were done a long time ago, and they all had a chamfer, so this is why this one has a chamfer. If those ones didn't have a chamfer, this probably would not have a chamfer. And you can see as well the paint filling. So the nice thing about using our router to do the custom plaque is that we can literally cut it out into any shape that you want. So in this case here, it's rectangular, so that's pretty straightforward to do. But if you don't want it to be round, you want it to be oval, you want it to be in the shape of an elephant, you know, anything you can imagine, shape of a logo, we can do that here in the shop for you just as easily as a rectangle, which is something that's pretty straightforward. So what I'm doing here is changing the tool to go from basically a cutting bit into an angled bit. What the angled bit does is that it'll create a chamfer all the way around the Corian plaque. And because I have a chamfer on it, it makes sanding a lot easier. It also means I don't need to worry about having to do a secondary process with the table router, because I have basically the CNC creating the chamfer for me and then the CNC cutting it out. So it's also a lot more precise. Now for a rectangle like that, it's not really a big deal, but for some other Corian jobs I've coming up where you have sort of ovals and all that kind of stuff, it's actually quite difficult to make a really nice chamfer all the way around properly and accurately without using a CNC machine. So that's what I'm doing here, is doing multiple passes. Corian is incredibly hard material, so what you want to do is not go through full depth all the way around. You just do a couple little passes. Again, it takes a little bit longer, but it produces a better edge quality. And then what I'm doing here now is grabbing actually the cutting tool. And what the cutting tool will do is it'll cut out the plaque right next to the chamfer. So basically the chamfer tells you where you're going to be cutting. So what you're doing is actually cutting, because the chamfer is making a 90-degree sort of cut through the Corian. What this does is cut that in half, so it cuts it out at the 45. So exactly at the point where the chamfer is done, that's where this bit is coming in and cutting it out. Now, Corian produces a little bit of like snowflakes, basically. I've gone years with my CNC router, my old one, that didn't have a tool changer. So having a tool changer just keeps blowing my mind. And it's amazing the speed and accuracy that I can achieve when I don't have to stop the machine and redo all the tooling, the height for all of the work that I do here in the shop. So the next step after this is cut out is actually to use the laser, which you see behind me here. And what the laser is doing is laser engraving all the names that you see on here, so all the text. Now the nice thing about the laser, instead of using the router to do this, is that you get very sharp details. So with a router, you're always limited, as you can see here. With a router, you're always limited by the bit diameter. And in another way, you're also limited by using a different diameter bit. So in this case, if I want something this sharp, maybe I'd use a 1/16 bit diameter with the router. The problem is it'd be very slow. It'd be very prone to breaking because it's so thin. And with Corian, it's a very hard material. It's very durable, of course, but it's also very hard. So it's even harder than any hardwood that I know of. Using the laser, it's a non-contact method. So right away, all I do is apply a masking over it, and then the router just sort of vaporizes the material as it passes over. Now what you'll see is I'm doing multiple passes on it, and that's to achieve more and more depth. I've done a ton of Corian in the shop with the laser, and I've found through the years that, you know, it's just same as wood. You try to overpower it, you end up with a lot of problems, and you just, you know, have to take your time with it. There's no way around it. Just take your time, do the right job for the customer. Now the reason why I applied the masking over this first was because there was a paint filling. Now, I don't have to do that. I could actually just spray paint directly on this after it's done with the laser. But then I have a lot of sanding to do. So that's how I avoid that aspect of the job. So now I'm laser engraving the Corian. The reason why it looks white is because I have a mask over the surface of it. And what I found is over time, I used to do it without the mask and just spray paint everything and then just sand everything. And then do it with the mask and then spray paint everything and then remove the mask, which is a lot more work on something like this because you have a lot of little letters. And any little letters will stick to the Corian, of course, especially when you have paint. So there's quite a bit of cleanup involved, but there's still less cleanup than having to sand the whole thing over multiple passes. What you see here is I'm doing multiple passes to get the depth. My laser is definitely powerful enough to do this in one shot, but what I found is the quality is better if I just take things slow and I just go over multiple passes onto the Corian plaque. Now you can see everything's nice and sharp. Now technically I could do this plaque using our CNC router as well with a dimensional bit, but you wouldn't get that sharpness. You know, at the end of, let's say, the M or the R, like everything is nice and sharp and precise. While with the CNC router, because you have a round bit, you're limited. You can use an angled bit, but you still have a rounding everywhere that you do it. Now the reason why it's getting darker as it's going over, it's not because I'm creating any charcoal or anything like that. It's just that there's more depth, so what the light is doing is getting into the shadows. That's the only result. And here's the not so much fun part. It takes quite a while to take all this masking off, but this just makes life so much easier in the shop because basically once this is done, I have a finished project and I'm ready to ship it to the customer. So after a lot of sanding to get everything nice and consistent, remove any sort of glue, or not glue, any sort of paint that maybe went under the masking or over the masking or what have you, you end up with a really nice plaque. Now Corian is a wonderful material for plaques because it's available in hundreds of different colors and sort of textures. So in this case here, it's Silt. That's the name of the Corian we used. You see it almost looks like little stones. But you got to remember, Corian is compressed acrylic. That's basically what it is. So it's different chips of acrylic melted and pressed together. And for wall stuff like that, works wonderfully. Now, something you want to keep in mind with Corian specifically is that it is a very brittle material. So if you want something on a wall that it could possibly fall down, you definitely don't want to use Corian, or you want to have, let's say, lots of screw holes in each corner just to make sure it doesn't possibly fall down, because then it will shatter on you. It's basically, again, acrylic shatters, this will shatter as well. But luckily at my shop, we can also do these things out of stainless steel. We could do them out of hardwood, softwood. We could do them on leather if you wanted to. So if you're looking for a custom plaque, any size, any shape, any material, contact me at CNCKing.com. We'll make it for you and ship it right to your door.